know your name, I swear I do. It's on the tip of my tongue. Sorry, what did you say? I've known you for how long? Your face is so familiar, but no name comes to mind. Please, can you remind me if you'll be so kind? Staring out into space, asking God to hear my case. Trying to think of all things past. How long will my memory last?
Well, hi, everyone. This is Lori LeBay with Alzheimer Speaks Radio. Welcome today. We're going to have a wonderful conversation with a daughter who is caring for her mother with FTD, which is a type of dementia. But before I introduce her, I always like to tell people a little bit about Alzheimer Speaks Radio. We are a branch of Alzheimer Speaks, period, which is an advocacy-based company providing multiple platforms to shift our dementia care from crisis to comfort around the world. And the reason I like to tell you a little bit about us is because we're always getting new listeners. We also help companies expand their brand footprint by leveraging our platforms in our content so that we can help connect people to the services, products, and tools that they so well deserve. And the company was started because my own mother started on this journey and lived with Alzheimer's disease for 30 years. So it was life-changing. It was devastating and isolating, but yet I would tell people one of the biggest gifts I'll ever receive in my life because it taught me so much and gave me a new career in terms of helping all of us connect as citizens, as people of the world, to one another and hopefully making us a little bit more compassionate. I also want to thank our listeners because you guys have been so loyal and so committed to sharing our content that you have really raised our profile, and I can't thank you enough because I really feel this is a community venture. We're doing this all together. And we have been lucky enough to be recognized by Oprah and AARP and Maria Shriver and Dr. Oz. And none of that would have happened without you. You see, it's your likes, your clicks, your shares with your Facebook friends, your Twitter tribes, your LinkedIn colleagues, your Pinterest peeps, whoever it is you're pushing information out to. It just says to me how needed that is. And I know even in my own sphere, there are a lot of people that have never told me that they're dealing with dementia until many years later because there's such a discomfort with having a conversation. And so I really think by sharing and working together, we're able to have more comfortable conversations and give people hope instead of being fear-based, which is, to me, primarily how dementia has been staged in the world. And I have made such wonderful friends and contacts and colleagues and learned so much. I just thank you all for sharing and being your authentic selves and showing the highs and the lows and all the real life experiences because that's how we all learn to grow. And we learn to hopefully take some steps around some curves that could give us a run for our money. Now, if you are listening, feel free to join the conversation by dialing into 323-870-4602. That's 323-870-4602, and we would love to have a conversation with you. I would also like to invite you to possibly be our next guest, and you can go to alzheimerspeaks.com. There's a big contact button in the upper right-hand corner. Please reach out to me. I would love to have a conversation with you because you probably have a story to tell. Maybe you're living with dementia and have been personally diagnosed. Maybe you're like our guest today, who is a daughter caring for her mother. Maybe you're a business professional or an entrepreneur or an author, a movie director, a singer, a songwriter, an advocate, or somebody who just has questions about the disease and would like more answers. So again, we are always open to talking with people, and that means you. Now, I want to give a shout out to a couple of organizations. Maria Shriver's Alzheimer's Women's Alzheimer's movement is absolutely fantastic. They really work hard at trying to push research forward to figure out why more women than men get dementia. And you can check her out and all the wonderful things she's doing at the Women's Alzheimer's Movement.org, the Women's Alzheimer's Movement.org. You can also check out Care to Plan, which is a resource directory, by going to Alzheimer's Speaks and clicking on our resource tab right at the top. It is something that is being beta tested, but it's a phenomenal service. It'll be great to get into our hospitals, our clinics, the social workers, and of course the family's hands as well. And last, I want to just give a shout out to the Dementia Raw team. They are with the Silver Dawn Training Institute, and Kathy and Tammy just do an exceptional job with their introspective improv. I was lucky enough when they were here in August in White Bear Lake, Minnesota, to take their caregiver class, and I learned so much. And you can too, if you're a professional or if you're dealing with a loved one. They have training programs specific to your needs, and you can go to www.cdcsdementiaraw.com. That's cdcsdementiaraw.com. Now, let me go ahead and introduce our guest today. I am thrilled to have Candace Williams with us today. She is the creator of a blog called Our FTD Journey. Our FTD Journey. And she started the blog to show kind of the trials and tribulations and the joys and the gifts of caring for her mother, who is living with frontal temporal lobe dementia. And she wants to really be in a place where she can help give comfort to those who are walking this journey along with her. And it's a real important thing to share stories and help lift one another up when it comes, especially to early onset dementia, and be able to talk with somebody who understands. So welcome, Candace. How are you doing today?
Thanks. I'm doing good.
Well, that's good. That's good. I know you are caring for your mother as we speak, and so if anything comes up, you just give us a shout because Mom comes first. But I appreciate you taking the time to be with us. Can you give us a little history about, your mother's diagnosis and maybe what age and types of symptoms that you saw? And that just helps our audience kind of figure out where you're coming from, or maybe if they're dealing with the same thing, what they should do or what they should look for.
So my mother was diagnosed October 1st, 2013. For some reason, you just never forget that kind of date. And she was showing symptoms, I estimate, about 5 to 7 years before she was actually diagnosed. It was kind of hard for me to tell, though, because my mother, as I was growing up, my mother was bipolar. So some of the symptoms I thought I was seeing, I thought were bipolar symptoms, like a lot of behavior stuff. I just thought, maybe she's off her medication. Like she would start getting like verbally aggressive towards me, physically aggressive. Like I couldn't have a disagreement with her without her, just like jumping in my face, and I'm like, oh, this isn't good, She would make promises and then she would say, oh, I forgot, and I would accuse her of lying because I thought she was lying, but obviously she wasn't. Her appetite before her diagnosis actually started changing. She started craving a lot of sweets, eating a lot of candy and cakes and ice cream. And she's always been a sweet eater, but it was like tenfold. She would come visit over at my grandmother's house, and she would just have the huge candy bars all the time and stuff. And my grandmother would say to her, hey, remember, you have diabetes on your father's side. You need to be careful. But it's just something she could not, it was just a huge craving. She just couldn't get rid of it. So there were like a lot of little things that I noticed, but like I said, at first I thought it was the bipolar symptoms coming out and not dementia. It wasn't probably until a few years before that I realized there was something bigger here. Forgetting stuff and just getting really upset about something that she forgot. Say if she left a purse someplace, she would get, anybody would get upset if they left their purse, but she would really freak out about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was, just a ton of different little things. She used to teach, and she would forget her lesson plans or say that she got sent to the wrong classroom. She had a few car accidents, not long before she got diagnosed. So with those car accidents, we knew for sure we needed to do something.
Oh, that had to be really scary. Now, your mom was fairly young, too, when she was diagnosed, wasn't she?
She was 57 when she got diagnosed.
Okay. And then you had said that you thought that she probably had symptoms quite a bit prior to that. So that really would have been, around the age of 50 then. Things started changing, which is a scary number for a lot of people. I'm pushing 60 now, and everyone has for so long thought that dementia was just all about, our elders, and it's hitting early and earlier all the time. Why don't you talk about, I know one of the things you wanted to talk about is how can you make bath time easier for both somebody, with dementia and the care partner, because that can be such a stressful time.
We give her a sponge bath, but she still doesn't really like that. We can't get her in the shower for anything. If we try to get her in the shower, she says it hurts.
Yep.
So right now we just use these dry bath wipes, and we add, say, like some Cetaphil soap to it, so that we don't have to completely rinse it off. We can just wipe her down and dry her off. That's the only solution we've come up with as far as bathing.
Okay. My mom used to complain that it hurt too and it was painful. And one time I was at a Teepa Snow conference, and I went up to her afterwards, and I asked for some suggestions, and she said, "Oh, Lori," she says, "as we age, we lose our fat pads. And so our nerves are exposed." And I said, "Well, my mom's a heavy-set woman." And she says, "It has nothing to do with how much you weigh. It just has to do with this thin layer of fat that covers our nerves, and we lose it as we age, so our skin becomes much more sensitive." And so, the shower water actually hurt her. And so what I did was we switched to a rain shower head and a handheld one, so we could have more control over where that would go. And that really worked quite well with her. And then started from, getting her wet from her feet up, and used like a shower chair. And that helped a ton. So I don't know if that might work for you at all or not. But
yeah, we actually did get a detachable shower head for both of the showers, and I did get her a shower chair. But even with the detachable shower head, and even on the softest setting, she still complained. So
okay, yeah. When I got the rain one, it really helped because that's a bigger, broader one, and it you can get it so it actually almost drips like rain. So that's just a thought there. I know that can be a really difficult time. Have you found that certain times of day she's more susceptible to being cooperative when it comes to grooming and things?
I think in the morning she's a little better. Maybe sometimes in the evening, but it kind of fluctuates with her. But I think mostly it's in the morning she does a little better.
Okay. Yeah, because that's one thing that I always recommend to people is just kind of monitor that, because sometimes we just have a little more energy and feel a little more, grounded and flexible when it comes to
Mm.
things like that. Now, you told me a friend of yours has been caring for her mother with dementia too, and her mother has been making really some frightening and untrue accusations against her husband.
Yeah.
How has that been going? And that's a real common thing that happens with many people with different types of dementias. They can get a little paranoid, or they can have hallucinations that that only they can see and but are very real to them.
Right. She hasn't said much about it lately. I don't know if it's calmed down or not, but obviously I'm concerned for her husband because, like, I don't know if she can still dial a phone or not, and and call police and say he did something that he didn't do.
Hmm.
So that's concerning to me. But she hasn't complained about it anymore lately, so I'll have to try to follow up with her again. Right now, her mother's been sick and in and out the hospital, so I'm guessing right now things are quiet for now.
Yep. Yeah, upheaval on different levels there with that.
Yeah.
One of the things you might recommend to her is just to call 911 non-emergency, and you can actually register and let them know that a person in the house and who it is living with dementia and what type. So if she would call, or if the police would be called out, they would know up front what's going on,
Oh.
and that would help them. That's something I just learned in the last couple of years, and I was shocked. I'm like, why doesn't everybody know that they can
Yeah, I
call?
didn't know that. 'Cause I didn't know how to advise her. I'm thinking, okay, don't leave your husband alone with her.
Yeah, yeah,
like ever. But
yeah. I had a girlfriend whose mother got really upset at her two daughters, who were just the most loving, caring people, and she called the police on them. She was hallucinating, thought there were bugs in the house, and it was just all kinds of stuff. Was paranoid that things were being stolen, and the police came out. And I remember my friend Anita actually recorded it all, so I could hear it. And the police were wonderful how they dealt with it. And they said, "I'm sorry, but you're going to have to leave now," because their mom, it was her home and stuff, and they left. And the kids felt just horrible. But she said, all in all, the police really dealt with it respectfully. And I think that this is, they get a lot more calls like this than we realize. Same with, if anyone's having mental health issues, you can register a person, with the police, and let them know. And that helps them if they're coming out to a house, to be a little bit more prepared up front, with information. Or if you have someone who you're afraid might wander, and when you watch when they wander, typically they'll go the same direction every time. And even if you note that, so if you're out for a search, to go left or go right, because that can make a
right.
big difference with those types of things. So, yeah, there could be some really frightening behaviors and some really hurtful comments that can happen. And I think sometimes we blame it all on dementia, and sometimes it's actually just some people's relationship. It's not always just dementia, but it's really easy to blame if there's a mental health, or if it's dementia related. It's easy to blame it on that, but sometimes that's just the relationship that's always been there too, and we have to realize, the histories that we've had with one another and the relationships that we've had. Have you you had mentioned that your mom had some behaviors or reactions that you were thinking were maybe more bipolar initially. Are you comfortable sharing types of incidences? Because I think people just really don't know what to expect. And I've heard all kinds of things from pastors that all of a sudden start swearing or start getting sexually promiscuous, and people are just shocked because that was not the person that they knew. But that behavior section of the brain has been modified through this disease. And so if you're okay sharing, we'd love to hear if you're open to that.
So, well, I had a cousin that was sick with cancer. She's been gone now 8 years, I think. She died in 15. I don't know. I don't remember. She died in 2010, I think. Anyway, we were seeing her regularly when she was in a nursing home, and my mom started showing these these really weird behaviors. Even when we were dealing with that, she would go into the nursing home and she would start making her bed, which you would think isn't weird. Like, you would want your loved one to be comfortable and do little things, but she got obsessive about it. And so one day I said to her, "Mom, just relax. Can't you just come here and visit and have a good time with her?" And she's like, "No." And I'm like, "Okay." And another time we were going up there and she got lost, and we had been going up there for a while, and she got lost getting us there. And so I was like, this is kind of strange. Another time we went to see her and we're sitting in the car getting ready to go in, and my mom starts just freaking out on my grandmother and I, and she said, "You're not the only one who's grieving too." And I'm like, okay, where did this come from? Nobody even said anything. So, like these really weird random outbursts and behaviors. Cussing, my mom's bipolar, so I'm kind of used to that.
Yep.
But it got worse, obviously.
Yeah, and that would make it hard to sort out, because some of those issues. I know my mom would be talking to people that weren't there, and people would go, "Well, that's pretty strange," and yet she was always really peaceful. And for me, I framed it with my mom. What she was doing is, and some people think that this is goofy, but this is how I looked at it, and I found comfort in it. But she almost seemed to be talking with people that had passed on in her life. She would call out to them and she'd be having conversations, but she would have just this peaceful look on her face. And I thought, well, I'm not going to tell her they're not there. I'm not going to disrupt her. She's content. We didn't have issues so much with the anger, though at times, with my mom's behavior, I think one of the biggest ones where she took a stand is she wouldn't let anyone in her kitchen but me to cook. And so for the holidays or any family gatherings, everyone was having this great time, and I was just cooking and cleaning because she wouldn't let anyone else in her kitchen, and we would gather at her place because it was a more comfortable environment for her versus, moving her out and coming over to our house or whatever. And that got frustrating. My poor sister-in-laws, they could literally feel the heat from her eyes just burning at them if they'd get even close to walking into that kitchen. And,
oh, wow.
Yeah, so you never ever know what's going to trigger a behavior either.
Right, especially if mental health is involved, because it's hard to tell. Sometimes it kind of blends together. And like you mentioned hallucinations, and my mother wasn't hallucinating at first. She didn't start hallucinating until maybe about a year or two into her post-diagnosis. She hallucinates daily, and we've actually tried medication for it, but she's allergic, which is another issue because she has a lot of medication allergies. So there's a lot of stuff we just can't give her. So we just have to deal with the hallucinations and delusions, and which can be tough. But she's actually, it used to be really bad. I mean, she's actually broken stuff because of the hallucinations. But now she seems to be calming down a lot now. So,
oh, good.
I mean, she still has them, but she doesn't freak out as bad as she used to, when she was having them. So, but yeah, I mean, tons of behavioral stuff. I mean, I look back at it now and I'm like, yeah, that was a clear sign, but I didn't know it then.
Yep. And you have to not beat yourself up for not knowing. It's just, you don't know what you don't know. I mean, that's about as simple as it gets with things like that.
Right, I suspected, but I thought, no, my mother's too young because I didn't know anything about dementia, nonetheless early onset. I didn't know it
Mhm.
was possible for somebody in their 50s to be
Yep.
diagnosed with dementia. That was just a foreign concept to me. Although I had my suspicions, but I kept saying, nope, nope, that's not right. That can't be right. There's something else going on. My mom has a thyroid condition, so I thought maybe her thyroid's acting up.
Mhm.
Maybe it's the bipolar. And the problem with early onset is that doctors aren't always quick to diagnose early onset.
Mhm.
Right, my
Yep.
mom's young. So they were looking at everything else. Besides, they thought, if they changed her medication for the depression and the bipolar, they, checked her thyroid. They did all these different blood tests to see maybe her B12 levels were low. They
Mhm.
were, good. They thought maybe it was something that would be reversible. And
Sure.
it wasn't until she had the extreme symptoms of losing things and not being able to find it and the accident and as the symptoms progressed, then they said, okay, we need to look into this. And then she finally had her tests, the cognitive tests and the PET scan, and then that's when they came up with the diagnosis.
Okay. Now, if I remember correctly, your mom has kind of entered the phase of incontinence now. How are you dealing with that? I know that can not only be difficult for the person diagnosed with the disease, but for loved ones caring for them as well. How have you dealt with that?
Well, it's been a slow process towards incontinence. I mean, we're 5 years post-diagnosis, and we just started putting diapers on her 24/7. So I kind of, in a sense, was prepared for it, in
Mhm.
the sense that it was a progression. It didn't just happen overnight, which is, I think, something a lot of people don't know. You think, okay, one day she's just going to lose it and that'll be it, and then we'll put diapers on. No, not for us. It was a
Mhm.
slow process. I think I deal with it okay. I mean, I change her when she needs to be changed. I wipe her. I do everything she did for me you know, when I was a child.
Mhm.
And not always easy, but I'm happy to be able to do it for her.
Uh-huh.
So, I just figure it's part of the course. It's just the way
Yep.
it is.
Yeah, and it can be taxing. I know with my mom, she did not want to wear Depends. She was not going to go there, and then it got to the point where, we had to force the issue, and she was so embarrassed at that time. And hopefully people nowadays will have a little better um, feeling about using them because they're, with the commercials on TV, they're showing people at all ages are having issues and that they can help, and they're a little bit more comfortable and don't look as big and bulky and stuff, but it could be really a difficult thing. I know when my dad had brain cancer, and towards the end, I had to help him, shower and things like that, and not everybody can do that. Some family members are really, really uncomfortable with that, and I think you have to address that as a family, because if you're uncomfortable, that's going to make the person you're caring for uncomfortable too. And it's already going to be an uncomfortable situation. So, making a good match within the family, I think, is something that we don't really talk about much in terms of types of chores and tasks that we take over, if it's finances, if it's grooming, that somebody themselves feels comfortable and confident in that role. As my mom, moved into a nursing home as she progressed, it was interesting to see all the little tricks and tips that the staff used in terms of, even just getting her out of bed or putting that extra sheet down to help roll her over or move her when she wasn't as flexible. and didn't have as much control over her body movements to be able to get her changed, or if you're doing a sponge bath, or if you have to clean them up and not scare them, and all of those types of things, or protecting furniture, and there's just so much to think of when it comes to incontinence, or going out, where are the bathrooms going to be, and having a second set of clothes with you, and so forth. It's kind of reverting back to, if you've ever had children, carrying all that extra stuff with you just in case there's an accident, kind of that Girl Scout, Boy Scout motto of be prepared.
When my mother first started with the, we call them absorbable pants around here. And
okay.
She didn't like it at first. She fought it, but after a while she just gave in. So it's something you just got to keep doing,
Mm-hmm.
and eventually they'll stop fighting.
Yeah. And there are some that you can you can purchase that aren't disposable, that you can wash and wear. It all depends. None of it's cheap, no matter how you
No.
look at it. And then even just the disposing of it and stuff, like with little kids, you have the diaper genies and stuff, to try to keep odors down, and so that you don't have to run and toss it outside all the time, and things. There's just so many things to consider, but dignity and comfort are critical pieces, and like you said, it's kind of a progression, through that process. Now, you've also talked about preparing your mother for a move, when you're ready to purchase a new home, and, will you bring her with you or not? And, how do you prepare a loved one for something like that? Do you have any tips for people?
Oh no, I haven't gotten to the place where I can afford to do that yet, but
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea how I would go about preparing her. I guess maybe eventually, when I am in that position, maybe drive her by the location, let her see. I don't even know that she'll be, like, right now she's still aware of her surroundings. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe by the time that happens, she won't even be aware of her surroundings anymore, and it won't be a battle. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But, I have no idea how to prepare somebody for that.
Yeah, it's it's a tough thing with my folks. They lived close to me, and then they retired and went up to the lake. And we knew my mom was having issues, and in the beginning the doctors kept saying it was hormones, and none of us knew. None of us believed it was just hormones, because it was significantly different. But 35 years ago, no one really even talked about this stuff, let alone the doctors diagnosing it. Really wasn't heard of very much at all. And so when they moved up to the lake, we got really nervous one year because and I would call them, 3-4 times a day, checking in, because my dad had brain cancer, my mom's got dementia, but they wanted to be independent. And so one summer, it was my dad's birthday, August 1st. We're sitting in town at my house on the patio having this big party for my dad, and it comes out that my mom took a fall that winter, and none of us knew. And
Oh,
I
gosh.
asked her for details, because she was rubbing her knee, and I said, "What's wrong?" And she said, "Well, I fell on the ice this winter." And I'm like, "What?" I talked to you 3-4 times a day. I never heard anything about this. And then my dad explains the story, that she had fallen on the ground on a patch of ice, and he couldn't get her up. My dad was in a weakened state, and so he goes into the garage. It's one of the funniest stories. He goes into the garage, comes out with some sand, and sprinkles it around her like she's a tire and going to get traction, and he still can't get her up. And he knows he can't go into the house because she has no concept of time, and she would have a panic attack and be really scared. And he couldn't call any neighbors because everybody went south except for them on this end of this peninsula. And of course, he really wasn't cell phone savvy, so that really, he didn't have that with him. And so he went back into the garage again, and he got a little red sled, and he pulled that up by my mom, and then he rolled her onto the sled and then pulled her up to the house. And then she was able to crawl off and, kind of crawl up the steps to get up, because, you would ask my mom to bend her knee and she would wiggle her finger because she would think she's in perfect compliance with you. And so that just scared us all, and my dad was really proud of the story, which we knew then, that portion of his brain had been affected, because he would never have shared that with us, because he would have known we would be worried. And so what I did was I was in real estate at the time. I put my folks on a waiting list for a market rate apartment right by my house, and I didn't tell them. And I thought, that happens is an opening comes up and, we say no. And then I ended up working with that company. And so I asked my mom and dad to come over and take a peek at it. And I made suggestions that they should rent at least during the winter. And, my dad wasn't up for that. And then finally I said, we're scared to death. If you could do this for us just during the winter, because we're losing sleep worrying about you guys. We're not so worried about the summertime, but in the wintertime, it's just not safe. So, he agreed then to that they would rent this place during the winter, and they could still go back and forth. And then they ended up just keeping it year round. And it worked out really, really well. But I would work with a lot of people in transitions, and I would recommend just put your name on a wait list, because you can always say no. And even if they say, well, our wait list is 3 years out, that's fine. Still put your name on that wait list, because...
Right. Well, I'm not looking to put her in a facility. I'm looking to get my own place and bring her with me.
With you? Okay. So in that case, then it would be, if she can come and look at places with you and kind of get excited, you'll be able to see and feel if that's exciting or scary for her, in that process. The other thing you can do is, go through with it. And then when you move, there are, if you have family or friends, or there are even companies that will come and take them for a day, maybe go out to a movie or go out for lunch, and then, bring them to the new place with everything kind of set up in as similar position as possible. So things don't look too foreign. But that's what a lot of people do with someone who is having some issues with dementia and stuff. But it's a tough one. Every person is different with that.
She doesn't really go out much anymore. I take her out like for haircuts and stuff like that. I used to take her out for lunch, but she doesn't. We can't do that with her anymore.
Okay.
But I mean, right now it's winter, so we'll be spending a lot of time in, obviously. But I think we need a different environment, and so I want to bring her, wherever I go. I don't feel like she needs to be any place but with me at the moment.
Okay.
I mean, obviously that could change, but when she would get upset when we would try to do something with her, like take her in the bathroom and stuff, she used to get upset and smack and punch. But she's calmed down a lot. She doesn't do that anymore. Like right now, she's taking a nap, so she's really calmed down a lot. So I think right now we're okay as far as not needing to put her, place her any place,
Yeah. Well, that's good. And everybody goes through that at different times. And some people never have to even do that, and it just, there's no right or wrong answer. It's what works for the two of you. Now, what have you found to be kind of the best way to explain to a person living with dementia that there is no cure? Is that something that your mom asks you often? Does she understand that she has FTD and what that's about?
She did at first, but now she's, actually it's interesting. 5 years post-diagnosis, she still sometimes realizes there's something different or something wrong. Actually, I had asked a friend if she had a question, and so that's the question she came up with. Her mom's in the facility, and her mom keeps saying, "I'm going to get out of here soon. I'm going to get better," and she keeps trying to explain to her mother that, "No, Mom, you're not going to get better." My mom, on the other hand, like I said, has made comments like, "I don't know what's wrong with me," or she'll say, "I'm stupid," stuff like that. And I'll say, "No, Mom, you're okay. You're not stupid," you know. But I do notice that a lot of people do struggle with, not not understanding, because they eventually go into this fog, this brain fog, and they just don't understand. When she first got diagnosed, obviously she was pretty upset, and she kept saying, I'm gonna do things different. I'm gonna eat better. I'm gonna go out more and do this, do that." And she tried that for a while, but with dementia, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and it can be hard to explain to a person who's diagnosed, that there isn't a cure, and is that relevant, or is that just going to get them upset? I think part of it is you have to understand what their true need is, and is it about, are you going to try to give them comfort, or are you going to try to logic with them? And depending on where somebody is in the spectrum of the disease, logic doesn't always work. There's a saying, don't argue with someone with dementia because you're never going to win. And so, sometimes it's more about a distraction, because if that's going to make them feel more isolated, or feel more depressed or sad or angry, do you really have to have that conversation? Are you having that conversation because you want to have that conversation, or are you having that conversation because they want to have that conversation? And so, with my mom, we had the conversation actually before she was diagnosed. We had a real rough incident, and actually it was over the holidays. Every year, all the girls in our family would go shopping and buy all the gifts. And this year, my mom didn't want to enter any of the stores. She just sat out in the mall on the bench. And my mom was one where she knew the mall so well. You could blindfold her and give her a list, and she'd come back with all the items you wanted. And so for her to be that withdrawn and that disconnected, we had no idea what was going on. And so when we got home, we approached my dad and said, "Dad, something's definitely changed." And she had confided in myself and my dad that she was having issues, but we were actually worried about maybe a stroke or something. And they decided they didn't want to take her into the hospital. She seemed comfortable, and she was glad to be home. And so my dad asked me to call the doctor the next day, because he said, if I call, she'll pick up the other phone line. And if you can, just explain what happened and let them know she was just in 2 weeks ago for a physical. And she asked about, her memory problems and some of the executive functions that she felt she was losing. And the doctor, again, just poo-pooed it. And so, I called the nurse, and the nurse, gave me, "I can't talk to you." And I'm like, "Listen, I know you can talk to me. You can listen to me. You can't tell me any information, but you can pass this information on." And and I said, my mom is really worried that she has Alzheimer's. And, we don't know if that's it or not. We just know something's wrong. And it would be very easy for the doctor just to call her back and say, "Dorothy, I was talking with colleagues, and I know you were worried about this, so I did a little further digging. Why don't you come on in?" But, of course, no, they couldn't do that. The nurse calls my mom the next day and tells her that her daughter called, and the whole family thinks she has Alzheimer's, which is not what I said at all. And so my mom locked herself in the bathroom and was threatening suicide, which was not her. She was devastated. It was horrible. And then when they finally got her in 3 months later for a test, they only did the 10-question test, and she had a good day, and then it wasn't approachable. And so, it's really important, how we talk about this stuff. And, Even getting my mom out of the bathroom, I said, Mom, the worst that's going to happen is they're going to tell you you have Alzheimer's and you already think you do. And I said, the best case is it's going to be something else that we can fix. And mid grounds is, yeah, we caught it early, but at least we'll know what to do. We'll have some guidance, or so I thought back then, which we didn't have much of. But she was just devastated. She felt worthless. She didn't want to live. She didn't want to be a burden. And I think everybody has to understand, especially when we have been marketing by fear for so many years, saying, telling people, and, the image for many of this disease is still end stages in a wheelchair, mumbling and drooling and not being able to communicate or do anything for yourself. And that isn't what the disease truly looks like for many, especially if they're diagnosed early. People can still live well. Many are advocates. And even with my mom, as she progressed, we talked about trying to make it easier for the next person, and learning from that, which is what you're doing by starting your blog and just being able to have conversations with people. You're going to give them knowledge and they're going to give you knowledge. And it's amazing how much that support for one another helps. It's not about any of us being able to fix anything, but just having honest conversations about real life issues that matter are important, and allowing people to feel all the range of feelings, because we feel those way before dementia hits. And and sometimes I think we feel like we have to stuff those when we're caring for somebody.
It's caregiving can be very lonely, because what I've learned early on is that people around you disappear really quick.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll feed you I'm there for you, if you need me, call me, the typical stuff that people say, but then they're not there.
Mm-hmm.
And early on, my mom, my mom was always an educator, always an advocate. She, enjoyed learning and teaching and stuff. And probably about a year, if that, into her disease, she said, I want to work on a project with you. I had no idea what to do. I had said to her, well, what would you like to do? But she couldn't really quite tell me back then, and I thought, I had started posting pictures of my mom on my personal page and videos of her, the different things she would do throughout the day and our conversations and stuff. And people said, you need to make a blog. And I'm thinking, at first I was like, nah, I'm too introverted, too quiet, too private. That's not who I am. I put this blog up, and suddenly, I'm in the public and I'm fair game.
Mm-hmm.
And but then as time progressed, and I thought, you know what, though, the more research I did, the more I realized there was little information on early onset, and maybe this is what my mom wanted. So I thought, that's what I'll do.
Yeah, I still feel very connected to my mom, even though she is, she's been gone for 4 years now, but I believe we're still in this together. This is, she's just been guiding me this whole way, with this. And, people say, oh, I can't believe she lived that long. And I think she held on because as a society, we weren't coming together. And, just in the last 5 years now, you're seeing more people collaborate. You're seeing more news on the TV, the radio, print, articles about dementia, from research to the voices of people, living with dementia, talking about what they want, to family members. All kinds of things are going on. Dementia-friendly communities. You're seeing grassroots pop up all over. You're seeing the Dementia-Friendly America groups pop up, different types of support groups. People are getting really creative on how do we work better together instead of alone and separated and siloed. I still think the I still think healthcare and insurance companies need to catch up with the general public on what the needs
Oh, yeah, yeah,
really are.
no doubt.
I think the door
And
is
I
open.
appreciate the movement that seems to be coming along, but still, early onset is not on anybody's radar.
Hmm. Yeah, there's I know here in Minnesota it's gotten better, but it took oh gosh, it was probably 9 years ago. I remember even talking with the Alzheimer's Association, and they're like, well, we're going to have people come and down to the legislation, and I'm like, why don't you have some young people? It's just not everybody in wheelchairs in on stages. You've got to change and be inclusive of who all is affected by this disease, and
Hmm.
show these families and stuff. And that's something they've done pretty well, I think, here since then. And I see more people with dementia actually being speakers at conferences. I really try to raise their voice through what I do on Dementia Chats and even the radio show. A lot of times I'll have people that'll host with me, and I just think it's absolutely critical because I know how much information and knowledge my mom gave me. And
Now,
if we can.
was your mom early onset too?
Yeah, my mom lived with her for 30 years, and so it was in her mid 50s when she started having symptoms. She didn't get
Oh.
diagnosed till almost 65 formally, but she had all the symptoms. She stopped driving at night. She would only watch one channel on TV because that's how she told time. She would bring a 3-ring binder to work with her because she was a proofreader and she couldn't remember all the steps. And she would bring that back and forth, because she didn't dare want anybody at work to know that she had made herself a little manual to help her do her job. And she couldn't really cook. She almost burnt the house down putting something in the microwave once, and all of a sudden couldn't really use the phone or the washing machine or the dishwasher. All those mechanical things just went. She just things she had used all her life. The vacuum cleaner just wasn't able to use those things, and the doctors were still saying, "Oh, it's hormones." No, it's not hormones.
Hmm.
um, so yeah, she lived with it a long time, long time, and she was just much more aware of it. She didn't poo-poo it. She knew something was wrong, and I kind of look at it, and some people think this is kind of woo-wooey, but I think that was her mission in life. I think that's why she was here, was to really make a difference when it comes to dementia. And through me, um, and the work that she taught me to do, and got me excited to do. It's been a really fun process. Meeting so many people and seeing how much change can be made when people just believe that change can be made. When they
Hmm.
believe that they've got knowledge to give and that there's tons of knowledge to receive from others in all different kinds of situations. So, I'm look forward to watching your blog and seeing you grow and get involved. Are you involved with the FTD Association at all?
No. I mean, I've looked at their website a couple of times, so I'm familiar with them, but I don't. I'm not like on their emailing list or anything like that.
Yeah, you might want to reach out to them because maybe you could be an advocate for them as well. And they might have some great resources that you can share, with other people as well. So, anyways, but we have to wrap up our show. I can't believe this hour went so quickly. I just really appreciate
No.
your time and you being willing, Candace, to share your story. Now, people can go and email you at our journey at our ftdjourney.com. That's our journey at our ftdjourney.com, or they can go right to your blog by going to www.ourftdjourney.com. So again, I thank you so much for spending this time with us, And I wish you the best of luck. I want to just encourage people to check out our website as well, alzheimerspeaks.com. And we've got tons of great resources if you want to become dementia friendly, if you're looking for a memory cafe or information about those, if you're looking for training. I do a lot of training and speaking around the country as well, from large to small groups alike. So I would love to chat with you. Have a wonderful holiday season, and we'll talk soon. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Well, hi, I'm Lori LeBay, and I wanted to tell you about Alzheimer Speaks, which is another great podcast. You see, my own mother lived with dementia for 30 years, and I felt lost. Did you know every 3 seconds someone in the world is being diagnosed with dementia? Odds are it's going to hit your families too. We want to help you connect to services, products, tools, research, and stories so you can be prepared. Please subscribe to Alzheimer Speaks on your favorite podcast platform.